With me now, retired Navy commander and former Pentagon spokesman, J.D. Gordon. J.D., good to see you.
Hey, Liz, great to see you as well.
J.D., this is quite something. 5 years ago, we still don't have all the answers to what happened in Benghazi and what exactly Hillary Clinton and her team at the State Department did or didn't do to prevent this or further it. It's absolutely shocking. Now this new report says that 2 security contractors went into this compound 2 weeks ahead of time, saw what a dismal situation that security was, and were told by the State Department after the attack not to mention the situation, how lax the security was beforehand.
Yeah, it's really awful. I'm glad we're hearing about it now. It's just more proof that Hillary Clinton was not up to the task to even be Secretary of State, and she really failed in her duties to protect our diplomats and our security services.
Right. I mean, it contradicts again. It shows us again. It contradicts the State Department narrative, because the State Department narrative was this was a spontaneous protest sparked by a YouTube video, a hateful Islamophobic YouTube video. But they knew that there were radical Islamists that had recently flooded the area, flooded Benghazi, that they were plotting a coordinated attack. The State Department actually hired a new security firm because they realized that, but it was too late. And then they tried to hide it from the American people.
Yeah, the State Department has tried to hide a lot of things for Benghazi. I remember Secretary Clinton was not very forthright with the Senate either when she talked about it. Remember, she said, what difference does it make who it was? And that was entirely awful and inappropriate. You know, not long after that happened, I wrote a column for Fox News, and it talked about Hillary Clinton gallivanting around the world, and did that contribute to the terror attacks? You know, she went to 110 countries around the world to say she was the best Secretary of State ever, right? But do you know where she was 2 weeks before that, Liz, before the Benghazi attack, where she physically was?
Where was she? Tell us, tell our viewers.
She was in Rarotonga, right in the middle of New Zealand and Hawaii, way out in the middle of the Pacific. Basically 2 weeks before the Benghazi attack, we had seen hundreds of attacks in Libya by al-Qaeda and others since Gaddafi fell, right? And so she knew, because she was briefed, that we needed more security at our embassy in Tripoli, right? And also at our mission in Benghazi. So she knew there were all these al-Qaeda attacks in June of that year, right? In June, there was an attack that blew a hole in the wall right at the Benghazi compound. So she knew about this. So 2 weeks before, she was in Rarotonga. What the heck's she doing in Rarotonga when al-Qaeda is overrunning Libya? So she failed in her duties to protect our diplomats and our security personnel. It's really awful, and I'm glad we're talking about it now to remind the American people of what she did.
Right. She neglected her duty. I mean, her duty as Secretary of State was to protect our ambassadors, to protect our diplomats. She didn't do that. That led to the death of Ambassador Chris Stevens and 3 other Americans here. J.D., does this warrant further investigation by Congress? Is there wrongdoing that it seems to me nobody's been held accountable for that someone needs to answer for?
Well, you know, I think so, because the American people never really got it straight from people like Secretary Clinton, from Susan Rice, for instance, even from Barack Obama. Remember, this was just a couple months before our elections in 2012, so they were desperate to tell the American people anything but the truth, that it wasn't a terrorist attack. They didn't want people to think it was a terrorist attack because Obama would have been vulnerable because it was on his watch. So they made up every excuse in the book to say, oh, no, it was just a video. It was just this spontaneous protests, when they knew that wasn't the truth. And the other thing that's a shame here, getting back to the security contractors and how they were muzzled by the State Department. You know, the State Department contractor they've been talking about here, Jan Visentiner, apparently she didn't even want to arm our embassies. I mean, how could you not arm our facilities like Benghazi when they're surrounded by jihadists? I mean, that mentality, that snowflake mentality, has got to go. I'm surprised that Jan Visentiner, the State Department contracting officer, is still there. She ought to go, in my opinion.
Well, that's the other thing. This contractor made a good point. He said that a lot of the procedures and a lot of the officials who were the ones that made this point, it was ultimately Hillary Clinton's responsibility, but they're the ones that made these decisions. They're still at the State Department. They're still in these positions, and nothing's changed. The scary part to that, to me, is that they're putting other ambassadors, they're putting other diplomats, they're putting more Americans at risk. We saw what happened. If we don't learn from history, it's going to repeat itself, and we're vulnerable, I guess, to this type of history repeating itself. It's scary. JD, thanks for being on the show. I appreciate it.